الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون صدق الله العظيم.
Shakir.
So I guess I'll just take his seat, mashallah. So, one of the things is Sister Yuri Kuchiyama, because she was a secretary, the letters that Malcolm wrote, he wrote to her. And then she would read them to, the press release or, the whole letter from Malcom X, that was sent to her. You know what I'm saying? And so she wrote a letter about leadership. And so, he wrote a letter about leadership because, I guess anytime you travel a lot and you're a leader of a community, the people gonna be like, this dude gone all the time. So to address that, he wrote this letter. Sister Yuri Sister, I'm going to just give the mic to the brother who got the letter first, because he can tell you more about it. I don't know what I'm talking about.
But he was correct. I was sharing with him. I got this letter. I'm friends with Yuri's daughter, Kuchiyama, and it's a very beautiful letter that Malcolm writes from Cairo, Egypt on August 29, 1964, that most people probably have never ever heard. And I think on this side, for those who are here, lovers of Malcolm, Yuri, it's something he's saying, it made me cry. It's so beautiful, but you'll see the spirit of Malcolm and what he really thought of black people in this letter. So I asked this sister if she could read it like Yuri probably would have read it to the old age.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. My dear brothers and sisters, my stay here in Egypt is about drawing to a close. My mission here in our behalf is just about complete in this part of Africa. For the next few weeks, unless something drastic happens to force me to change my plans, I will be traveling through several other African countries, visiting and speaking in person to various African leaders at all levels of government and society, giving them a first-hand knowledge and understanding of our problems so that all of them will see without reservation the necessity of bringing our problems before the United Nations, this year and why we must have their support. I'm not at all doubtful of support, but I've learned that one cannot take things for granted and then cry when nothing materializes. We must learn that we are masters of our own destiny, but only when we exercise the maximum efforts to get things done. Take nothing for granted in this world, and we will then be assured of its success. You must realize that what I am trying to do is very dangerous because it is a direct threat to the entire international system of racist exploitation. It is a threat to discrimination in all its international forms. Therefore, if I die or am killed before making it back to the States, you can rest assured that what I've already set in motion will never be stopped. The foundation has been laid and no one can hardly undo it. Our problem has been internationalized. The results of what I'm doing will materialize in the future. And then all of you will be able to see why it is necessary for me to be here this long and what I was laying the foundation for while here. I have been pleased to receive letters from many of you lately, especially to know that you would take time from your many other duties and obligations to write to me. From the sound of some of the letters, there seems to be much dissatisfaction and disunity creeping in among you, and some seem dissatisfied even with me. This sounds like history repeating itself. I want you to know that this is normal, and therefore it doesn't excite or worry me. I'm not particularly surprised at the ones around whom so much of the controversy and dissatisfaction seems to be raging, because experience has taught me never to take anyone or anything for granted. Being away from America is a blessing in more ways than one. It has enabled me to become untangled from the strong emotional issues and step back and view the whole picture with more objectivity than I could if I were right there. I can even see the problems better that have risen within our own OAAU and the Muslim Mosque. Let me restate my own position. I believe in human rights for everyone, and that none of us is qualified to judge each other, and that none of us should therefore have that authority. We do not have the right to force anyone to walk with us, nor do we have the right to condemn those who want to leave, those who become impatient when they don't see us getting results and therefore want to try another way. We can't blame them. We have no right to be angry with them. If we ourselves produce results, people will stay, and they will all support a good program that is getting good results. If brothers want to establish another organization, even that is their right. We must learn to wish them well and mean it. Our fight must never be against each other. No matter how much we differ over minor things, our fight must always be directed against the common enemy. Allah. If any Muslims are dissatisfied, they cannot be compelled. If any Muslims are dissatisfied, they cannot be compelled to stay among us and cannot be condemned for leaving us. This is the point I'm trying to get across to you. I only say that those of you who do go, try to keep good thoughts in your hearts about us, for we shall be trying to think good things about you. If any of you want to leave the OAAU and form something else, I say the same to you that I say to the Muslims. But wherever you go and whatever you do, remember that we have already wasted too much time and energy doing this in the past. I know your grievances, much of which is just, but much of which is also based upon inability to look at the problem as a whole. It is bigger and more complicated than many of us realize. I've never sought to be anyone's leader. There are any arguments with them. If our own program produces results, then our work will speak for itself. If we don't produce results, then we have no argument anyway. Brother Benjamin is the best teacher I left behind. He has many faults and many weaknesses, but then so have I, and so have many of the rest of you. I'm going to be away for at least another month. During that time, you can overlook the small differences that you have and make progress by working with each other, or you can be at odds and make no progress. You can make the Muslim Mosque and the OAAU a success, or you can destroy both organizations. It's up to you. You have one more month. I have so much faith in Allah and in right and in my people that I believe I can come back and start from scratch if it is necessary. And as long as I mean right, Allah will bless me with success and our people will help me in the fight. I love all of you and I pray Allah will bless all of you. Salaam alaikum, your brother and servant.
Allahu Akbar. Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
So did anybody think that they was going to hear that letter tonight? That's like a voice from the past. And there's so much of this stuff, like as Muslim leaders, if we would adopt that kind of attitude, think of how far we'll be as a people. So with that, I'm gonna give up my seat to Imam Zaid, so that y'all can all see him in the middle instead of me. And the first speaker of the night to kick everything off, this brother right here, Amir Malik, been such a part of my life. Like I can't even say, like, he made the deen real for me. When I was young and I was active, it was because I didn't know Malcom X. I knew Amir Malik. You know what I'm saying? But he was the closest thing I knew to Malcom X. Like y'all about to see when he did this talk tonight. Y'all about to be like, man, anybody, how many of y'all done heard Abdul Malik speak before? Allahu Akbar. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, he is from Philadelphia that just got knocked out the playoffs one more time. Got their coach fired, you know what I'm saying? But he been in Cali so long that he probably a Golden State Warrior fan until they moved to San Francisco. Because he ain't down with gentrification. So I'm going to get this mic up and let him talk about Malcom X. What are you saying? Well, I'll let you just go on into it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله أحمده وأستعينه وأستهديه وأستغفره وأؤمن به جل وعلا ولا أغفره وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله Assalamu alaikum. What I would like to do very briefly, inshallah, put my timer on now. The FBI said we must prevent the rise of a Messiah. They put it in quotation marks. Malcom X might have been such a Messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today. Let me tell you why they thought that he was going to be the Messiah, inshallah. All right? Now, Malcolm, after the Nation of Islam, he had the youth. The most significant youth movement in the South was probably SNCC. SNCC started coming toward Malcolm. It was SNCC who invited Malcolm to the South when he gave his House Negro, Field Negro speech. All right? So there were elements in the so-called civil rights movement, the Southern Freedom Movement, that was headed towards Malcolm. Rosa Parks was down with Malcolm. Fannie Lou Hamer, she was down with Malcolm. The Deacons for Defense, they was down with Malcolm. The last major march that took place in the South, the Deacons for Defense went to Martin Luther King and said, look, we're going through Klan territory. Dr. King, we are armed, and we're going to be armed. What do you think Dr. King said? He said, okay. All right? So they were going towards Malcolm. They were elements, core, the Congress of Racial Equality. They were coming towards Malcolm. A year after Malcolm was martyred, what rose up? The Black Panther Party in Oaktown. Can you imagine Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, Assata Shakur under Malcolm? Because that's exactly what was taking place. That's exactly what was going on. The white radical youth, whether underground and so on and so forth, they would have come under Malcolm, right? And then in the North, Malcolm had the North on lock. New York, Philly, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Oakland, San Francisco. The North was Malcolm territory. It still is Malcolm territory. All right? Entertainment. Malcolm had Cassius Clay for Muhammad Ali. Jim Brown. Sam Cooke. Major singers, so on and so forth, right? Actors. Ozzie Davis. Ruby Dee. Authors. Louis Lomax. James Baldwin. Right? John O. Killings, huh? Sonia Sanchez. Like, you had all these elements that was coming to Malcolm. Malcolm had an effect on the major Islamic movements that came up. The Dar al-Islam. The earlier members used to be security for Malcolm after he left the Nation of Islam. The Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, under Imam Talib to this day, that was the Muslim Mosque Incorporated. All right, and the Islamic Party. Malcolm was having an influence that was just growing and growing. International. Malcolm was going to African countries, right? In Black Africa, in so-called Brown Africa, Arab world, in the Asian world. They treated Malcolm like he was a head of state. Did you hear me? They treated Malcolm as if he was the leader of his own country. In the 1990s, then Bill Clinton wanted Black African countries to go with the policy that he was pushing. What did he do? He sent Uncle Jesse. He sent Jesse to Black Africa to try to convince these Black countries to go with Bill Clinton. So Jesse Jackson was a special envoy of the President of the United States, not Malcolm. Malcolm went representing us. He was representing the Black liberation struggle. And again, they treated him as if he was the head of state, the leader of his own country. That's why they called him the Messiah. And he got with Islamic elements. He got with Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, when he was over there. He got with some of the brothers in Kano, in northern Nigeria, right? He got with some revolutionary elements. Malcolm was a revolutionary. And it was clear what he wanted. Now, let me come to this part. What was Malcolm's relationship? What did he want his relationship for us to be with the system, with the United States? How did he want the United States to deal with us? When Malcolm was talking about international human rights and not civil rights. Civil rights, he said, meant what? You're taking the problem to their courts. You're taking the problem, you're taking the criminal to the criminal courts, right? He said international human rights. Now, there are laws. There are international laws that Malcolm wanted the United States to deal with us on. The international laws talk about national minorities. And there are certain rights, according to international law, that national minorities must be given. And here are the points in international law. A national minority has a right to be different. This is under international law. A national minority has a right to be different. A national minority must be given self-determination. If a national minority is not incorporated socially, politically, and economically into that society, then they have a right to self-determination. If a national minority, this is all international law, if a national minority is not given self-determination, according to international law, a national minority can wage an armed or unarmed struggle for self-determination. That was the relationship that Malcolm wanted us to have with the United States, right? That we are a national minority and we have a right to self-determination. Y'all know self-determination. You heard of Black Wall Street, right? We supposed to have a bunch of Black Wall Streets all over the country, right? Self-determination. And so Malcolm was clear that this what has to happen. Malcolm had a perspective that Malcolm, that we were a national minority and we were our own country. And that's how he thought. Malcolm wanted to send military units into the South to deal with the Klan. Malcolm wanted to send even military units to Angola, right? Malcolm had the perspective that we are in and of itself, we are our own country in this country. And we demand self-determination. Do we have self-determination now? No, we don't. So that means that with Malcolm, with the change that he wanted to see are not here. That means the struggle is still there. That means the work is still undone, right? And like he said, a national minority has a right to wage an armed and unarmed struggle for self-determination. That we demand self-determination. Now, remember when the Muslims went to Medina? You look and see how the Prophet, peace be upon him, dealt with the Jews. That was straight up, that's probably where international law probably came from. He recognized the Jews basically as a national minority. He gave the Jews community control. He gave them self-determination. You can have your own social systems, your own economic systems, your own political systems based on the Torah. And you have a right to that. He told them, you have a right to that, right? They didn't even have to participate in the wars of the Muslims. They paid the jizya. They paid the tax to show, to recognize who was in charge. But they did not even have to fight in the wars. We want a deal like that. We would love a deal like that. You know what I'm saying? No, seriously. But you understand that in Islam, when we say dhimmi, we're not talking about minority. We're talking about the protected ones. Do we feel protected? Why did Malcolm feel that he had to send military units down into the South to deal with the Klan? We are not the protected ones. But the dhimmis, this is like, brothers and sisters, this is like Allah and His messengers telling us, you see these people right here? They with us. It's like Allah and His messenger saying that to the Muslims. They with us. Right? They're protected. Right? There's a covenant with them. Malcolm wanted to make it very clear that no, that's how you have to deal with us, saying you got to deal with us like that. So just like the Prophet, peace be upon him, dealt with the Jews like that. And then he said, and if you can't, come to an understanding, what have you, in your institutions, then I will be the final arbitrator. But he gave the Jews their self-determination. He recognized them as a national minority and he gave it to them. That's how Malcolm wanted us to be treated here. And they still have to treat us like this. Brothers and sisters, the theme has always been self-determination. It's always been. It's been different different phrases, right? Do for self. That was black self-determination. Power to the people. That was black self-determination. Black nationalism. That was black self-determination. Black power. That was black self-determination. It's always been about self-determination, and we can't let them separate us. One of these historians, when they dealt with Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey, they said Booker T. Washington, civil rights leader, Marcus Garvey, black nationalist leader. Wait a minute. But Marcus Garvey was influenced by Booker T. Washington. It made it appear like they was on different pages. No. When you look at black self-determination, you'll see how everybody's connected. Booker T. Washington was down with black self-determination. Marcus Garvey was down with black self-determination. Why do Muslims? Why are we pushing self-determination so much? Because self-determination is so important to us, our calendar is based on it. When we became a self-determinant people, when we had our own country, when we had our own nation state, when we had our own institutions, that's when time began for us. And so for Muslims, we are serious about self-determination. And so we have to take that mentality that Islam gives us and inject that mentality into the black liberation struggle. Malcolm wanted to see two things. He wanted to see the liberation of our people, and he wanted to see the establishment of Islam. And let me tell you something. All these years that we've been dealing with saying, Let me tell you one of the things I learned about Sam. Sam is still afraid of Malcolm. No, seriously. Sam is still afraid of Malcolm. Sam is afraid of black male Muslim leaders. And any black male Muslim leader who comes up, Sam will compare them to Malcolm. So just like Malcolm said, that if you're going to stand up like that, you got to be ready to go to jail, the prison, or the graveyard. Right? And we see that up to date. H. Rap Brown. H. Rap Brown became a Muslim. Imam Jamil El-Amin. And the system saw black male Muslims who came out of the black liberation struggle, who's using Islam as an instrument for our liberation. Check out his book, Revolution by the Book. You'll see what I'm talking about. He's using Islam, teaching us how to use Islam as a weapon for our liberation, right? So there he is. And so what happened? They made an analysis. The system made an analysis. He's coming out of the civil rights movement, Black Panther, and now a Muslim. And what they saw was potential Malcolm model. Where is Imam Jamil now? He's in prison. Right? And it was a correct analysis they were making. That was a correct analysis. Because one of the things that's being done is trying to get us to disconnect Islam from the struggle of our people, from the black liberation struggle. Right? Imam Jamil represents that next stage of what's happening right now. And every black male Muslim leader in this country knows that when they stand up, they know that there's a pressure that they feel. And if they're not ready to go to jail, prison, or the graveyard, they're not going to be the type of leader they're supposed to be. All of that was Malcolm. So they are still afraid of Malcolm as if I'm serious. They're still afraid of Malcolm as if he was still alive. Maybe that's one of the things Allah is talking about. Don't think that the martyrs are dead. You know what I'm saying? That they're still alive. They are afraid of Malcolm as if he was still alive. And everything Malcolm tried to put in order, put in place, so on and so forth, Allah's in charge. But everything he tried to put in place, Sam is trying to undo everything. He's trying to undo everything. But Allah's in charge. And so Malcolm, this man has to be studied and understood, and we have to use his analysis to understand what's going on today. Let me end with this. I have I'll end with this. Even though I have 7 minutes left. Check this out. The speech that he made after his house was bombed. All right? They called it the last speech. It wasn't the last speech. The last speech was February 16th, but this was February 14th. And in that speech, he said what the white man is concerned about, and white man, of course, meant the system. What the white man is concerned about, he said, are people of color outside of the West who are rising up. They're rising up. He said, and then they're concerned about the number of people of color inside the West and them being affected by the people of color outside the West, right? And he said that it's causing a problem. All you have to do today is just erase people of color and put Muslim. That's all you got to do. Just erase people of color and put Muslim. Because in the Muslim world, there's an Islamic revival. That's why there's a war on Islam. Because there's an Islamic revival taking place in the world. In the West, the Muslims are starting to outnumber the white folks. The most common name in England is Muhammad, right? And there are Europeans who are concerned about the Islamization of Europe. And so this same quote-unquote white man is concerned about Muslims outside of the West who are coming up. Because in every one of those countries, there's an Islamic revival, movements and so on and so forth. The white man is concerned about the Muslims coming up in those countries, and he's concerned about the fact that the fastest growing religion in the West is Islam. And we do not recognize national boundaries, do we? We are all brothers and sisters. This is Malcolm. So Malcolm's time is upon us. But at the same time, if we walk with him, if we walk with what he was doing, we have to be ready for major sacrifices. We've got to be ready for major sacrifices. So what he said in the letter was real. He said, I'm hurting these crackers. You know what I'm saying? I'm hurting the system. He said, I'm hurting the system. What I'm doing is hurting the system. That was true. In terms of people power, the real power in the world is international. He went on to international level, and he was making moves on the international level. They are still afraid of Malcolm. And so we need to know who Malcolm is. I'll stop there, inshallah.
Mic kind of hot. After that, when the mic is hot, we ought to be like, we gonna give it up. I can't remember who was saying. Aliyah Cherie. She about to keep that joint hot. Bismillah. Ladies first, but we did Amir went first. You know what I'm saying? Bismillah. Oh, sister. I'm sorry. I didn't bring up no bios, but Sister Aliyah Cherie, Bismillah, man. You know what I'm saying? She got they call that thing SoundCloud on lock. You know what I'm saying? She got the Instagram, taking the Instagram by storm. You know what I'm saying? I remember she had an album called Back on My Dean. That was your first album? Second album. I'm out of date. I don't know what's going on. I can't even keep up. But we're going to pass the mic to Sister Aliyah Cherie. Rooting for the Warriors against the Kings, even though she was in Oakland. I mean, she was from Sacramento. I said.
Do we gotta add that? Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Alhamdulillah. How's everybody feeling tonight? MashaAllah. Yesterday was Malcom X's birthday, as we all know. So du'as and alhamdulillah for the fact that we are all here celebrating this man. How many years has it been since they took our brother from us? 60? So it's been 58 years? MashaAllah. It's crazy because I'm gonna be honest, I had to put the notes down. I didn't make a whole, Cindy ought to said 20 minutes. I said 20 minutes. You know what I mean? And I'm coming after Abdul Malik, so I'll get back to that. MashaAllah, Abdul Malik is so fire. So, you know, I'm gonna just be honest on how I feel right now today on our brother Malcolm. I've been studying him a lot. Especially, you know, in life, we study Malcolm, but I've been listening to him a lot, getting ready for this talk. And I ain't gonna lie, I've been reading and I watched the Malcolm X movie again last night. And how I feel right now in 2023 and hearing the letter and hearing all the speakers, I lost Malcolm again last night. That movie is traumatic, you know what I'm saying? And it took him away once again. And just to see this system and going off of what the brother Abdul Malik said, they still are aiming for us. They're still showing us on a constant basis our brothers killed in front of our face. I seen that movie, I'm looking at his daughters. I'm looking at the audience. I'm looking at all of us having to witness this in film. After the Eric Gardners, after the Trayvon Martins, the Andy Lopez's, we're still having to see black people killed in front of us. And then as a society, we come together. We heal each other. We sit here. We have a celebration for Malcolm. So I just want to give it up to us, mashallah, for being strong, for being a community that's able to, you know, take all of this constant war that we have on us. As a black woman, seeing Malcolm X, my first memory was my mother, you know, in elementary school. She let us know, this is who Malcolm X is, and this is a leader. He's black, you know what I'm saying? And black isn't everything, because in Islam, she always taught us that black wasn't, you know, predominant, right? But when you're black in America, it's hard to just say, you know, I'm Muslim, because unfortunately, no matter what it is, when the Kappas see us, whether if we're Muslim, we're Christian, we're Jewish, and we're black, it's an instant problem, you know, and as we ride by police officers, we wondering, are they gonna stop us? They gonna shoot us? They gonna kill us? They gonna hurt us? You know? So I just wanted to bring some light and love to the fact that, you know, we see in that movie yesterday, I really experienced losing Malcolm again. So may Allah be pleased with Malcolm and bring us another Malcolm, because for some reason, I have a lyric in one of my songs. I'm a music artist, and in one of my songs, I have a lyric where I say, you know, I want to be like Malcolm, but my mama taught me when I was young what the outcome. There's an instant fear that we are delivered. And as somebody with a voice, somebody who can speak, somebody who knows in Islam, if we can't fight with our hands, we do it with our heart, we do it with our tongue. I know the fear of grabbing this microphone and speaking, but you have to get through it, of course. But do you know how many people have been silenced just because they don't want to be the target? They don't want to be the enemy. They don't want to stand out. I was just listening to a brother the other day saying how his mom didn't want him to speak at the protest because that's where everybody's going to be watching and filming and reporting and recording. And so you guys take what we have, break us down as people in this country, and then make us silent. Trauma, y'all, trauma. And it's like, it's really important. We acknowledge it, we heal it. And when it comes down to healing, we can't rely on, you know, the man to come and give us anything, because it's really the people with the least. Like I was saying to my sister, we were talking about earlier, the people with the least are the ones that help you the most. And that's where we come from, you know, that's where Malcolm came from. Malcolm came from Abdul Malik. One of the things he taught me when I first started listening to him speak about Malcolm X, I only wanted the Malcolm that was in Mecca and afterwards. El Hajj. But he let me know you can't love Malcolm if you don't love every part of Malcolm, every stage that Malcolm went through. You can't love Malcolm, you can't know Malcolm if you didn't know him all. So, alhamdulillah. I have a poem, well, it's like a rap, and I was inspired by Malcolm writing it, and it's my first piece I'll share. Y'all ready?
Absolutely.
Y'all ready? Cause y'all, I heard one person. But loud. Mashallah. Thank you. So again, I love putting it into art. I love speaking as well, but I love putting all of this emotion into art. I love putting our leaders and our knowledge that we got into actual lyrics. You know, hip hop started with education. And a lot of older hip hop songs have Malcolm X in them, samples in them. So I started doing that with my music as well. And if you listen to Malcolm X still, he sounds like he is talking to us today. You know, so his music in my hip hop and in the samples in hip hop in general are really relevant still. So I don't really have a name for this piece, but here we go. Let me grab it like a hip hop artist. Hold on. I said, get your hand on my pocket. Same trials, running miles like Pac did. All my leaders get hit, drop quick, on the pin for a bid. They did not commit. The problem is you counterfeit. They didn't even have to lie, still they plead the fifth. Let the blind lead the blind straight to the ditch. Got these strange fruit hanging like the crucifix. But I rock my fist and I handle my biz. I don't care what they say. I know that we built this, shielded by guilt, oil spilled minefields. It's a shame how the money brings you pain and filth. Need help, waiting for brothers to make bail. Freedom, living on earth, going through hell. Locked in a prison cell, the 13th Amendment failed. Some mentally jailed, they finished them last meal. But being black in America, it's a fact. They scared of you, shoot you in the back, unaware if you're strapped or not, then lay you flat and call it sneak attack. Public lynching is back with pure intentions to distract. But it's time to take our narrative back. Everybody say, it's time to take our narrative back. Period, as they say in the streets. Period. Alhamdulillah. So that was that piece. MashaAllah. One thing, and let me check the timer. One thing that I do want to say as well. Oh, I got a lot of time. Hold on. Has everybody heard Malcolm X talk about making it plain? Correct? Or who? Raise your hand if you heard Malcolm X say make it plain. Oh, wow. See, that's why I love y'all, because we all growing and learning together. When Malcolm X said make it plain, one of the things I took from it, Malcolm was not a scholar like all these, brilliant people on this panel. I'm honored to be on this panel. One of the things that encouraged me to be able to speak was Malcolm saying to make it plain. You know what I'm saying? You don't necessarily need a college degree to understand what right and wrong is. Do you understand what I mean? you don't need a college degree to use your voice as a vessel from, you know, a gift from Allah. So one of the things that I always took with me was, you know, Malcolm was really sincere. He said that if he wanted anyone to remember anything about him leaving this earth, it would be that he came in all sincerity. All his actions were sincere. So that always reminded me, you know, and astaghfirullah, I'm not comparing to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, but as a black woman in America, to not see such a pure soul and vessel, I feel like Malcolm X was just, there's no way this man was, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a pure brother that honestly came as, what did the Quran say? It would be 20,000 messengers, you know, the last of the prophets. But I definitely feel like he was one of the messengers that affected us all. Going back to the hip hop element and women empowerment. Do y'all know who Malcolm X said the most disrespected woman in the world was? The black woman. And not only did he say disrespected, he said disrespected, neglected, and unprotected. Okay? So not only, of course, as an artist, that's inspiring to hear something articulated in such a poetic way, but it's the cold, hard truth. So as an artist, I often find, like, you know, sometimes when you just sing along and you want to dance and juke and jive, you know, that's what gets the attention, that's what gets the masses, that's what gets people's ears to look at you. But when you come with that real knowledge and real spit, you know, that's when people get a bit uncomfortable. So, you know, Malcolm was an inspiration as well, but that line forever was encouragement to me as a woman, especially as a black woman in America. And I am going to, I still have some time, but I wanted to say one more piece before I wrap up. And this piece was really important to me because I was in the Women's March, right? It was all these people at the Women's March, and they wanted me to do this song called Who Ready, which I was surprised because, you know, Malcolm X, it was Malcolm X in the intro. So I was like, okay, we can do Who Ready. But in the beginning of Who Ready, Malcolm X says, let's join them, you know, like let's get beside them, let's work, like let's get out there and let's get active. What goes back to eventually the transition where he was trying to work with leaders and he wasn't trying to, you know, divide from leaders and come together as black people. So you could check Who Ready and see Malcolm in the actual video. I took the clip and he's like, let's join him. But it's fasting in these hard times, living my rhymes, trying to envision a better picture, division divides, blinded by minuscule differences. Yo, it's fact over opinion. Switching your common sense just so you can fit it. Now you're getting chitted with sinners and you don't handle your business. You try to blend with the trend. No matter who you offend, you disrespecting our women. You cashing checks just to benefit. Effects to our mental. But who gave them credentials? See, we coming through to take that. Cause the fakeness. Ain't no way that music can be used as a tool to abuse us. Time to wake up. Re-up on your lyrics. Cause if you go with the flow, then you're part of the gimmick. And now we don't feel it. You scripted, your image is shifted. And now your lifestyle slipping. Admit it. You ain't even submitting to the realest. Did it all for the Skrilla. But now we all in the building like, who ready? We was born to be ready. We put our fists up and tell them we the real revolutionaries. Cause when the time come, who ready to ride? Or is you gonna be sitting there on the sideline? If you ready, put your fist up. Cause if you ain't, you on the sidelines. They want me to be ignorant, considerate, belligerent, or barbiturates, deliberately throwing hints like a frisbee. But can I get out of here where the exit, please? Who next on my checklist? Those who will neglect this, choose to be fools, bring your rhetoric, or Confederate, let them lifestyles hectic, mad when I come through the wreck-it. These shots fired cause I ain't dealing with no liars, selling us imaginary dreams where we ain't buying, tearing down the industry and they call it a riot cause we ain't being quiet, we ain't keeping silent, we keeping it real. We telling how we feel, no violence unless you're coming sideways. Nowadays, people be flexing with no guidance, providing no science, but we only abide by the Most High. Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. So y'all, MashaAllah. And I want to say today, when I spit these rhymes and I do this because Malcolm is my father. You know what I'm saying? Malcolm is our father. Malcolm has inspired me tremendously to use my voice. Malcolm X and Tupac, you put them together and you ready for America, okay? You ready for the world for real. You know, so I'm in elementary school and, you know, they had already passed and everything, but that's what I'm studying. That's what my mom is giving us. She's giving us like this older history. So parents, don't be afraid to teach your children who came before. It's not always about the trend. It's not always about what's current, you know. These leaders, like Abdul Malik said, we don't always got to redo the wheel. We don't got to reinvent it. It's already been done. I'm listening to Malcolm like, I'm sorry, brother, in this letter while the sister is reading, because I'm like, we just repeated history on you too. On you too, and you knew we were repeating it while you were writing it because you said it. And here we are in 2023 still trying to pick up the pieces. So Ya Allah, please help us, inshallah. Please help us, please help us, please help us, because we need help right now. We do, y'all. Pride and ego to the side. We need help right now, inshallah. But thank you so much. Love you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Could we all get a hand for Sister Leah Sharif? Alhamdulillah, man. I feel like, you know, there's some things for the Muslim that regardless what our outlook is, we all embrace. Like Ramadan. I don't care, you know, what sect of Muslim you are. When Ramadan come, it's Ramadan. You know what I'm saying? And Malcolm X is kind of like that kind of figure. Like, he's beyond, you know, any kind of like differences we might have. We all love Malcolm. And you know what I'm saying? And I think that anybody who hasn't read the autobiography of Malcolm X, you need to read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I don't see how somebody could be an American Muslim and have never read the autobiography of Malcolm X, because it has so much history. Like Malcolm X's life connects the Garvey movement to the Black Panther Party, like Amir Abdul Malik said. It's like there's no facet of black history that Malcolm X's life didn't touch. Malcolm X's, and there's another book, and after this I'm gonna introduce the next speaker, but this book is important too. After I read this book in the pandemic, it blew my mind. It blew my mind that y'all know who Malcolm X's bodyguard was? Malcolm X's bodyguard was Clarence 13X. And the reason why all of these people know who Malcolm X was because the 5% movement. Like, they was the ones who carried that banner through hip hop. Anybody my age, they was like, too black, too strong. And then the song would start. You'd be like, what was that? Know what I'm saying? But it was because, and if you think about what Malcolm said he wanted to do, and then sparked it with the letter, because I was like, Clarence 13X probably was the one who was like, I'm gonna bounce, because I don't like Benjamin. And if you think about Malcolm X said, what he wanted to do was start two movements. One movement for Muslims, what was it called? Muslim Mosque Inc. And the other movement was going to be Organization for African American Unity. He said the reason for the second organization was because everybody didn't have the discipline to live like a Muslim. But they still needed those teachings. And if you look at the 5% Nation of Islam, they took the Nation of Islam's teachings with none of the discipline. They could do everything they wanted to do. So basically, even though, and I'm not saying we should join the 5%ers, but everything got a history, but this dude was trying to embody Malcolm X's words after Malcolm X died. And it brought Malcom X to a whole new generation of people. There would have been no Malcom X movie or none of that stuff had it not been for hip hop and the 5%ers. And with that, I stole Aaliyah Sharif's extra minutes from Brother Hashim, who's another Bay Area legend. Shout out to all the Bay Area legends in the house, man. Where Hook at? Where Hook? Hook ain't here tonight? Alhamdulillah. Inshallah.
Yeah, you gotta love your legends. Despite their struggles.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمد عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد Alhamdulillah. I thank Brother Sundiata because I was talking to him about doing a program, so I'm gonna try to get through this without crying. That's not gonna happen, though, so you can know this, okay? That's not gonna happen. I so sister bring me some napkins. How many of y'all ever heard me speak? Raise your hand. See, that's good. So for those who ain't heard me speak, I'm gonna be animated. That's just who I am. You have to live with that, okay? Don't think I'm acting them like that. This is who I've been, right? I got this letter, and I wanted to do the program tonight. And the brother who recited this Quran, he recited ayat. And in the ayat, he says, Allah is the wali, right? The guardian of the believers. He leads them and takes them from darknesses to light. What's interesting about this ayat is that it's zulamat is plural. So we have levels of darkness. And nur is only one. Wahid, nur. I look at Malcolm's life sometimes for me as a person who connected to the walayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah did what? You talking about that. And we were able by Allah's grace to watch him go through these darknesses. And even there's hadith that talk about veils of darkness don't mean dark. Veils, you can have veils of light to get to Allah. So veils, it's already like just little by little get to a point. And I want to talk a little about Yuri and then just give two observations that I would like to say for the community. Because I'm always consider myself a community activist. But before I start, I'll share a couple things with you that I really want to say. First, I want to say is that, inshallah, I wasn't here, but see, I would have cried. But I think people like Abdul Malik, because I met Abdul Malik under the leadership of Imam Musa. And Imam Musa died, and regardless of what people think about him, he offered a lot of people a safe space. And I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we pray for his soul and ask Allah to stop to forgive him for his sins. Because the one thing I said about him was he might not, he never sold out. He never sold out and he never snitched. Because if he snitched, I might be here right now. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Those who know, he ain't never snitched. He kept it 100 to the end. You know, and I'm grateful for Imam Musa. I took Shahada, and I used to go to Mash Al-Islam on 8 Deuce in MacArthur, right? 82nd MacArthur, and you know, it's still home. If I walk in there, it smells like home, right? I see everything, and I, you know, man, people out the mall there, and you know, the fire you getting from him, I was getting that fire at 20. You know what I'm saying? So I'm on my figures now, so I've been grateful for that. But the other person I actually got to say a Fatiha for, and I have to mention his name because Malcolm's grandson, young Malcolm, was raised in my house in Miami. And this year we remember the 10-year anniversary of his murder in Mexico City. It's been 10 years, 10 years. And, you know, he was Malcolm's grandson, and through him I got close to Quabilla, his mother. And during the funeral we had here at downtown Oakland, I thank Imam Zaid because Imam Zaid, you know, and the brothers came through and made sure that we had the resources. I remember, you probably remember Imam Zaid, he said, it don't make a difference. It's Malcolm's grandson. We got to make sure he's straight. There was no judgment. There was no with this. It's just like we got to make sure his grandson is buried. And I think Sir and some other people, we did the, and I don't know how many guys ever washed the body. I'm sharing it. You don't share this, but I share it because I just want to, you know, it's 10 years later, right? Doing the janazah, you learn a lot when you wash somebody's body, right? Because Allah teaches you a lesson. You're going to be here one time too. And to think about it. But to wash a body of somebody who was murdered and you can see that it's not the same. It ain't the same. And to wash that body was very difficult for us. But it wasn't more difficult, and I don't want to cry, is when Quabilla his mother walked into Fouché's, which is interesting because little Bobby Hutton, who was murdered and martyred, was at Fouché's. You know what I'm saying? So Fouché's has had a lot of black liberated people who lost their lives to this gulag we lived in at Fouché's, right? And we went in there and, you know, some people say she can't see her son's body. I'm not going to tell no mama she can't see her baby's body, right? So we came in, we had the kafan on them, and you remember, we sitting there crying, like, really crying. And she walked in with no tears. And for women, I don't know what it's like to lose a child as a woman to lose her son. I don't know. I can only empathize. I will never say to a woman, I understand how you feel, because I can never understand what a woman who lost a child, how she would feel. And she walked up to my little Malcolm, and she rubbed his arm and rubbed his leg. And she turned, and remember she said one time, she said, they killed my granddaddy, they killed my father, and they killed my son. Can't comprehend that. Y'all remember Malcolm's grandfather, Malcolm's father was killed by the KKK. Malcolm was martyred, and little Malcolm was killed down in the South. So I asked you to make al-Fatiha for that family, because that family has suffered and sacrificed and gave their blood. Some of us may never be honored to give our blood for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to say it again. Some of us may not be honored with the ability to give our blood for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a blessing. So I say that because I just don't need to say that, but in that process, I met in this most, because I love Yuri Kuchiyama. Yuri Kuchiyama to me is one of the most phenomenal. I had a friend, brother Amir, we always debate like, who's Angela Davis? He started going by all the black women, you know what I'm saying? I said, look, man, I don't care. Y'all don't gotta like me. Pound for pound, Yuri Kuchiyama has done more work for the African-American black liberation struggle than anybody. I will say it again, Yuri Kuchiyama has done more for black liberation than any men and women. And you're like, what are you talking about? Because you got to know her story. The first thing is to understand Yuri was a Japanese American whose family was put in an internment camp. Had nothing to do with Malcolm, right? She sent her children down to the South, and they were out there helping getting people registered to vote, right? When she was living in Harlem, she would go around and she was working with black people and trying to do educational stuff. So she, in her own right, if she never met Malcolm, would have been a what? An activist, a known activist. And everything she did was for the upliftment of oppressed people, right? That's a fact. Nobody can fight that. So when we look at Yuri, and because of my time frame, I can tell a lot. I asked you to go and study her, look her up and everything, that she did a lot before. And how did she meet Malcolm? She said that Malcolm was walking with all the Nation Islam people, and she was like, no, I want to meet Malcolm. He's a famous person. But she felt that being a Japanese person, right, that Malcolm would not have, like, looked at her because he was in the nation. And she reached out and said, I want to shake your hand. She shook Yuri's hand and everything. And then she said, they ended up writing letters to each other, because Malcolm, he loved to write letters. So Yuri wrote letters. And he ended up coming to her house. She was hosting people who were victims of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing. And they were going around doing a tour. And so she didn't think he was showing up, and he showed up. Which is interesting because Adi, her daughter who lives here in Oakland, is probably, she was 14 years at the time. It's probably one of the only people still living who can have a recollection of seeing Malcolm, living. And so Malcolm came to her house and they developed a good friendship. And after that friendship developed, Malcolm trusted her a lot. I mean, Kobila told me this is, from before. Sister Sarah, I think it's Sarah, Betty, and Yuri Kuchiyama were the only people that could cook food for Malcolm's household. I want you to think about trust level. Now, this is somebody who Malcolm saying, you can cook food for me. And I say it because we're in an organization. Trust is very important. So Yuri was allowed to cook food for the family. So they built this bond, right? And the bond became so cool because they respected each other. And I really mention this because I come from a different generation where they talk about, okay, like I was at UC Berkeley one time, right? And they had the black students over here, and they said, okay, all the allies over here. I got a problem with that ally stuff. Well, how are you an ally? Is you going to tell Malcolm Yuri was an ally? You wouldn't say that. Yuri was a comrade. There's a difference between solidarity and camaraderie and sitting there saying, well, you're an ally. Because once you say someone's ally, you put it on the outside. I tell everybody, I know y'all not know some of the names I'm talking to. You got a paper writing down. Anybody know who Marion Buck is? Yeah, I'm trying to tell y'all better study. A white lady, Marion Buck, put in real work for black people. You know who David Gilbert is? He just got out of jail. He was with the BLA. He was with Mutulu Shakur when they robbed the truck. That's his comrade. I saw Mutulu the other day, guys, in LA, and Mutulu was like, yo, man, that's my comrade. My comrade. Those are the people because they put themselves out there in the struggle. Yuri was out there in the struggle. Yuri was trusted by Malcolm. Yuri was a secretary. She wrote things for Malcolm, right? And then what happened is that people, brother Abdul Malik talked about when Malcolm said, y'all know when Malcolm's house was bombed? Everybody who came to Malcolm's house, like they moved down, everybody run to the house to go protect everybody, to see, where do they come from? Saturday night. Yuri's house was always open for activists on Saturday night. The call got to Yuri's house and said, yo, Malcolm's house got bombed, and all the OAA unit came there. Because her house was used as a place for the activism. Her house was always open for people who were struggling. Y'all know who Robert Williams is? Wrote a book, Negro with Guns. Right? I'm a teacher, so I'm going to give it. Right. Robert Williams and her was close. Max Strafford, y'all know him? Ran Revolution Action Movement, right? That was a Philly, right? Temple. Close. Y'all know who Seth for Shakir is, right? Tupac sister, yeah, that's a little closer for y'all, right? I picked Sexual up because we were doing this thing in LA at the airport. I had my Yuri button on. So Sexual like, oh, that's Yuri. I'm like, yeah. And she started crying. I'm like, what's wrong? She says, look, when me and my mom and my brother were homeless and kicked out, the only house we could go to is Yuri's. We went to Yuri's house. Yuri took care of them. Yuri spoke up for Mutulu. Yuri spoke up for Momia. And she also befriended a very powerful Muslim woman. And I hope y'all know, write this name down. Y'all heard Sophia Bukhari? Y'all, man, y'all better study Sophia Bukhari. Like these Muslim women, who she befriended her. And I say all this because somebody said, why are y'all talking about Yuri? Maybe she's a Buddhist. Maybe she's this. No, Yuri Kuchiyama actually took Shahada. Yeah, she took Shahada. And I got a text right here from the brother who gave her Shahada before she died again, just to make sure brother come out. Y'all know him. So she took it again just to make sure everything was straight. That's following the Walayat of Malcolm. That's loving Malcolm. But the one thing that Yuri will always be known for, to me, I just can't comprehend because I love Shahada. You can put that on film. I love martyrdom. I think Shahada is, like it's the path. All them sins you got on, you just go. It is, right? And I'm not afraid to make a movie. When Malcolm gets shot, the first person to jump on the stage, not away from the bullets, but towards the bullets, was Yuri. Not Betty. I'm nothing against Betty, not Betty. Not the secretary, not the bodyguard. Yuri Kuchiyama was the one of you look on Life magazine standing above the head of Malcolm X, holding his hand, trying to give him mouth to mouth. I can only bless. Man, to me, maybe I'm just a little, but man, to put your lips upon the lips of a shaheed when that soul is leaving, my goodness gracious, what y'all talking about? Unless you don't understand the concept of shahada, the beauty of it. This is spiritual stuff. This is metaphysical stuff. This is like something when you look at this woman like what she did. And then she went on, and afterwards, when Malcolm was martyred, she continued to help and struggle. Her house was known as Grand Central Station, right? And she did so much for the movement. And she gave so much of when she's worth studying. When she died here in Berkeley, California, right? She was like 93 years old. When Tukey Williams was about to be assassinated, in the Gulag in San Quentin, I went over there with my brother Zaid, and we went over there, and here comes Yuri, what do you call that? A walker coming down the hill at San Quentin in the 80s, 90s. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, you ever been in awe of somebody? I'm in awe. Because this woman gave her life for God, fighting and helping regardless of your racial nationality. She really helped a lot. And she did so much. And I say it because her birthday and Malcolm's on the same day. That's why we're talking about her. And I mention her because her birthday is May 19th. And I talked to her daughter. And tell her daughter all the time, because Yuri collected teddy bears, right? I said, man, just give me one teddy bear. That's all. Just one teddy bear. Just because it's just so incredible. But another thing she did that we don't do is she documented everything. She would constantly write, and just write stuff about what was going on. And so they have an archives for us. So I met this Indian sister, actually, in England. She went to the archives. We have so much archives on Yuri. But Yuri stayed her course to help everybody. That's when she died. Actually, her funeral, her program for her at the Masonic Lodge. And, Angela Davis spoke highly of Yuri. So I asked her about Yuri Kuchiyama, look her up. And she took her Shahada. And by the grace of Allah, she took the name Fatima. I mean, he changed the name, you know. So in the last part, two things I'm gonna say, right? Last time, and this is going to, you see how it revolves to Malcolm after I say it, right? We talk about writing things. I'm from Richmond, California, right?
Right.
You from Oakland, I'm from Richmond. Anybody from Richmond, raise your hand. All right, so y'all know how I get down in Richmond, right? It's just, I'm from Richmond, I went to Cal. That don't really mean a lot, right? I used to go to Oakland. I don't go to East Oakland no more. I make it to West Oakland and call it quits, because I'm like, it's too far to go down to East Oakland, right? But I moved to Los Angeles. Actually, last time I gave a speech for Muharram, I went down to LA. I was battling because I did this thing. I know Jalen Brown played the Celtics. Woo, Jimmy Butler, give it to him right now. Right? But I did a program in Berkeley. And I was like, should I live here or live in LA? Because I've been living in LA for a year. But I really like LA, not just because it's hot, but keep where I was staying at, like, y'all know the jungles is? Anybody from LA? Right? It's a lot of black people over there, right? I'm like, hey, man, this is a different energy, right? Lamarck Park and all that. So I go over there and I go home. And it was the 8th of Muharram. And so on the 10th of Muharram, I was walking and I lost and I'm going to say Abu, and I mean no disrespect. Muhammad Touré, you here? Put your hand up. Allah. I'm calling this man Abu, but he ain't my blood Abu. He's his blood Abu, okay? And y'all know who Muhammad, y'all heard of Muhammad Abdullah?
You better read about it.
Y'all better go to him. That's my guy, Sheikh Mo, right? I met him in Mashallah Islam. He used to go to prison through Dawah. So I come back and I lost his number. He stayed in the jungles, right? So I'm like, man, Allah, I really got to find him again, right? And we just happened to meet over by CJ's. I know y'all really, I'm just talking, over there. And he walk up, and he always wear a turban. And he always wear thawb, right? Salam alaikum, I said, what's up, man? And I said to him, look, man, I think I'm going to stay in LA, right? You see people out, right? And Allah sometimes sends people to you that you can learn lessons, right? I've been knowing him for a while. So he's like, yo, man, and listen to what I'm about to say. And I mean no disrespect to masjids, just what I learned from my Abu. He said, Hassan, a lot of these massages in LA, they're working from the ground up. You know? We working from the ground. We working with the people on the ground up. He said, but I got some boys that want you to me, they working from the ground down. I said, the ground down? He said, yeah, man, there's trenches here in LA that everybody ain't going to go to. You want to put some work in? Come on, I'll show you how to meet. He was telling the real. So me, I'm just from Richmond over there. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, cool, right? So he meet me, I'm going to say that because he's my partners, OG. So I met some cats. OG Mustafa, may Allah have mercy on him because he's happened to die. And Brother Hakeem, OG Sight, 8-4 Swans. I don't know if y'all know what that is, but I'm going to give them their love, right? Hey, man, them dudes I met, we ate. They said, yo, we doing gang intervention in South Central on Truco, 76 and Central. Come on through. I'm like, cool. I go over there and everything. And I got to see, if anybody from LA, gang culture. We don't got it like that up here. But what I realized was the majority of the people down there in the trenches doing the work was the Christians. What the Muslims think? We scared? I mean, we scared? I mean, I'm like, why are we not? But these two brothers, they was down there, nah, man, this is what it is. And so I sat back and I started to learn. I started to listen to people who was down there doing their thing. And I started to see what was going on. And unfortunately, Brother Mustafa passed away when we were down there doing work, passing out stuff. Then I went to Watts. Y'all know Dawood Sherrill, right? Dawood down there in Watts. His mama at 103rd and 103rd station in Watts. Sister in the jail, passing out food every day, putting in work. So I started to say, nothing against here, but they have a different energy. So we meeting the Banging Brothers, right? They doing all this and everything. I'm like, yo, man, what's all that? They keeping 100, you right? We in the meeting. I don't know the stuff, right? Brother said one time, brother, man, if I would have saw you the other day, back then I would have killed you. But we brothers now, let's try to make it work. But I'm kitchen till I die. Y'all heard of the kitchen? He was a kitchen crip. I never even heard of that stuff. I think he's saying stuff, but they keeping it so 100. They have this energy and they going at it. And so I say that because in those trenches, in those fields, around the world, I'm going to say this first because I think it'll go to it. In Iran, they had a revolution. There was a man by the name of Shahid Ayatollah Beheshti. Beautiful man, wrote books, right? He was in Germany and everything, and he did so much to help the revolution. And then he was they blew up the Majlis and killed like 70 people in one day. And they killed Ayatollah Beheshti. And they thought they were happy, and they asked Imam Khomeini, well, you know what I'm saying? He gave a speech about the killing of Beheshti. And he said something beautiful. He said, what they don't know is Iran is full of Beheshtis. Iran is full of Beheshtis. Meaning, you can't kill, because these young people are going to come, they're going to be like Beheshtis in the future and continue this revolutionary spirit. When I'm down in them trenches, and I'm down with Muhammad Abdul, and I'm seeing all that going on, I'm going to say the same thing. You know, hey, you can't kill Malcolm. America's full of Malcolms. America is full of somebody, y'all Malcolms. Some of y'all brothers who've been incarcerated came out deaning, y'all Malcolms. So it's not enough that we see here, but the issue I got is how do we continue to have that energy and realize that there's Malcolms here, there's sisters who got Malcolm, you said spirit in. How do we energize ourselves to recognize that we see somebody throwing up some sign or somebody acting crazy, or some snotty-nosed little black kid acting up in the high school, or some kid who's selling dope on the corner doing something crazy? If we look at them, do we say, is that the next Malcolm? Or do we say, it's another nigga? I'm sorry, can I say that word? All right. I want to say how they see it. We have to have that vision that we see it. And so I end with this, and I'm going to say, because I came back here, I see all the brothers and sisters here. I'm driving down San Pablo, and I realize this. I get the ghost town right over there, West Oakland. And the ayat says, Allah's the Waliyah, connecting to the correct leadership. Correct leadership will lead you to light. Wrong leadership will lead you down to darkness. Love is your leadership. And if you, like Malcolm said, don't want to get with somebody, then become some leader and I'll work with you. But we have to organize. This sister Amelia that put in work for the homeless non-stop as leader. How many people supporting her? This is the Hijabi Chronicles the other day. How many of y'all sisters was there? And if you don't want to come, it's okay. Support and do something else. But we have a duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do something. When I drive down Oakland now, because Richmond is already desolate, right? We ain't got no nightlife, we ain't got no daylight. Come to Oakland, I'm driving down. Oakland to me, it looked like a hip-hop graveyard. I don't want to see all that spray paint with some rabbit with a blunt in his mouth on the wall. All these spray, like y'all do. The Greyhound station is what is all, everything fell apart. Oakland is falling apart. But you know what I see when Oakland's falling apart? I see what the messenger of Allah said, when the battle of the ditch, right? He saw those two, they was digging, and then, what do you call that? Sparks came out. He said, I see the fall of Rome, I see the fall of Persia. Rome and Persia were giant empires, and he saw something positive. In the middle of a desert, the Prophet Muhammad saw what? He brought correct wilayat, and a desert became the most powerful thing in the universe today. Oakland, Richmond, the area is falling apart. And that's a blessing for us when we step up and say, we're going to see this as a desert that we're going to bring love with correct life and love and look at Malcolm's legacy and get with this leadership up here. Get with this people up here and everything. Get with Lighthouse. We don't got a set trip. I learned it. You know what I'm saying? If we can do this, I'm from Lighthouse. You know what I'm saying? I'm representing Lighthouse. I'm representing Sabakun. Represent your set. But remember, La ilaha illallah has supremacy over everything. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So I'm representing B-Town for life. And the next speaker, I always tell people, I say, hey man, when it comes to Islamic leadership, it ain't another place as small as Berkeley that done produce some of the heavyweights. I don't include myself, but I'm saying we got some heavyweight people from B-Town. Y'all, it's two of them up here. Y'all don't even know who I'm about to get this mic to. If y'all got somebody heavier than this, brother, go ahead. Where you from? Where you from, Richmond? Imam Zaid, Shakir. Y'all didn't even know Imam Zaid was from B-Town. Takbir. Everybody go up.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidil Mursalin Sayyidil Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I was born in Berkeley. The house is still there. My father was in the Navy and he was stationed out here in myself and one brother and one sister were born in California. So he's right.
Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillah. I think it's very important that everyone listen very carefully to what's been said, because it's part. Every piece is part of a puzzle that has to be put together so that we can advance as Muslims in this country, as a people of African descent, and as people who say La ilaha illallah. When we think of Malcolm, there's so much that you could say, so I'm just going to say what pops into my mind. The first thing is that Malcolm has always remained, for all of us, an iconic figure. Because iconic figures are figures that are larger than ourselves. And as long as Malcolm remains larger than us, we can always look up to him. And one of the things that they want to do is to reduce Malcolm to just another, I won't repeat what brother, but and the person they commissioned for the job was Manning Marable. And his autobiography, where he's going to humanize Malcolm and make us look down at Malcolm. Not even look eye to eye to Malcolm, look down at Malcolm. And so we have to always look up to Malcolm. Because Malcolm didn't raise himself. Allah raised Malcolm up. And when we try to put Malcolm down, then we're going against Allah's plan. And we place ourselves in enmity, an opposition to a plan. So always look up to Malcolm. And that's what is going to inspire those young men that Brother Hashem was talking about. Because they're going to learn about Malcolm, they're going to look up to him. And then they're going to say, he started where I started. If he could do it, I can do it. And that's why this country is going to be filled with Malcolms. If he can do it, I can do it. But there's special circumstances that facilitated Malcolm doing it. One is family. So they want us to not look up at Malcolm, and they want us to devalue family. Because they know family is the foundation and the incubator that gives birth to Malcolms. When Malcolm is, and it's critically important, we have to organize. We have to organize. Malcolm, everything you can say about Malcolm, internationally, domestically, philosophically, movement-wise, everything you can say about Malcolm does not measure up to Malcolm's skill and ability as an organizer. Malcolm built the nation of Islam. All due respect to Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm started the newspaper. Malcolm started the FOI. Malcolm started all of those institutions that made the nation strong. And there was definitely, as I don't want to get nation people mad at me, there was definitely the man behind the men. There was the man behind the men. Elijah was behind Malcolm. Elijah was behind Ali, etc. But we have to understand, where was the nation pre-Malcolm and where was the nation post-Malcolm? Malcolm started, I grew up, born in Berkeley, but grew up mostly in Connecticut. Malcolm started the temple in New Haven. Malcolm started the temple in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Malcolm started the temple in Hartford, Connecticut. Malcolm started the temple in Springfield, Massachusetts. Malcolm started the temple in Worcester, Massachusetts. Malcolm started all of those temples. So, Malcolm could organize. Malcolm brought, as was mentioned, Malcolm brought all those writers. The Muhammad Speaks was the most widely circulated and highest quality newspaper in the United States.
Malcolm brought all those writers to Muhammad Speaks. Malcolm brought that quality. Malcolm could speak to all the people he could speak to. But to go back to the organizing, that's a product of his family. His father was an organizer for Marcus Garvey's movement, UNIA. And Malcolm went around with his father and observed what his father was doing, how he talked to people, how he networked people together, how he brought them together. So Malcolm's ability to organize didn't come out of a vacuum. Malcolm's ability to think didn't come out of a vacuum. His mother was a writer for the Garvey paper. His mother was a first-rate intellect. We talk about liberal arts college. She had a liberal arts education in Grenada at the Anglican Grammar School. She knew logic, she knew rhetoric, she knew grammar, which means what? She knew how to think. And she taught Malcolm how to think. So Malcolm learned those skills in his family. Malcolm learned self-sufficiency in his family. His father, they didn't live downtown. They lived on the outskirts. And they knew the value of land. They were growing their own food. They had their own chickens. They were making their own clothes. And those are the things that we have to learn to do. We have to learn how to farm. So they want us, we come to these cities. Y'all know Gil Scott Heron. How many of you know Gil Scott Heron? I know.
Why are you on the moon? Why are you on the moon? Why are you on the moon?
I can't pay my doctor bills.
Why are you on the moon?
6 months later, I'm paying still. A rat done bit my sister nail. I'm talking about another Gil Scott. He said, yeah, I heard a whole lot said about this city living. They told us that the streets were paved with gold. And many of us believed them silly lies and came a-running. But that was just another story they told. They said you were country, you got some farming boots, why you wearing them clodhoppers? They made us feel bad about getting our hands down in the dirt. We had to grow our own food because we don't know what they're feeding us. You know, Ronald Reagan, your governor, he said ketchup is a vegetable. He said ketchup is a vegetable. These people don't care about our nutrition. They don't care about our families. They don't care about our families. They don't care about our well-being. They don't care if we hate each other. They facilitate us hating each other. So, just to summarize, we have to look up to Malcolm so we can strive to be like him. Like all these people, they want to be like Mike, right? I want to be like Mike back in the day. I want to be like Mike. You don't even know Mike. But you want to be like him. You're not going to be like him if you don't got the vertical. We have to look up to Malcolm. We have to begin to understand the value of family. We have to fight for our families. All these forces trying to tear our families apart. You know, it's hard to build a movement and to develop the kind of consciousness that undergirds it if our families are in shambles. Because we have to pass that knowledge down to our children. Now, we're talking about transgenerational struggle. The moral arc, Dr. King, of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. But it's a long arc. It's a transgenerational struggle. If we don't have the family structure conducive to passing down that knowledge, it's going to be very difficult. We have to fight for our families. We have to divorce ourselves from this capitalist system. And that means making your own clothes. The fashion industry creates 72 million tons of waste every year. The planet can't sustain that. And we can't afford it. We can't afford it. Mama, give me this. Mama, give me that. Give me them sneakers. Give me those. No, I don't want to wear them anymore. They're out of style. They said, well, they just came into style 3 weeks ago. But you know why they're out of style? Fashion started with 2 seasons. Winter and the summer line, the winter line. Then it went to 4 seasons. The summer, winter, spring, fall line. Now it's 11 to 15 seasons. People buying junk. Go back to Gil Scott Heron. You can take part in the all-American dream. Do what? Just fill your house up with 1 million products you don't need. You don't even have to use them. Buying is all they ask of you. And if it's so doggone incredible that you don't believe it's true, it's Madison Avenue. They sell sand to a man in a desert. They sell chicken, tuna, to the chicken of the sea. He's a tuna fish. Man in the desert surrounded by sand. And they're abusing us. And they're taking our money. Because if we're spending money on clothes, on sneakers, on all this stuff that we don't need, then we're not spending it on education. We're not spending it on supporting our brothers and sisters in Africa. We're not spending it on building bridges of brotherhood and sisterhood. We're not spending it on our masajid. We're not spending it on our schools. We're not spending it on our feeding programs. We're not spending it on those things that are going to make us a strong, mighty, competitive nation on the face of this earth. And all of that Malcolm demonstrated. That's the foundation of it. In conclusion, Malcolm loved us. He loved us. And you think about it, you can't have a dry eye. You think about the depth of his love. And read R.C. Davis' eulogy. He died for us because he loved us so much. And we have to love each other to the point where we're willing to die for each other. Because if we don't love each other, we're going to hate each other. And if we hate each other, the opposite of willing to die for each other, we're going to be willing to kill each other. They had the Panthers killing each other over typewritten letters. Now they got deep fakes. I know y'all don't like Richard Blumenthal, senator from Connecticut. But listen to the introduction of his chairmanship of the Artificial Intelligence Committee meeting the other day. It started with him giving this speech to introduce the subject, and then he stopped and said, "That's not my voice." He said that voice was created by voice capture software. The speech was written by ChatGPT by going over all my Senate speeches on the floor. So if they had the Panthers killing each other with some typewritten letters, what are we going to do when the deep fakes come? When this brother's giving a speech, looking just like me or Imam Amir Abdul Malik or Dr. Bilal, saying, oh, these brothers, they ain't about this, and those brothers ain't about that. If we don't have love in our hearts, if we have love, we're going to say, I'm calling my brother. Because that's what the Quran tells us to do. If some if some perverse source, and the internet is a perverse source, comes to you with some foul news, then verify it, clarify it. Unless you create dissension. That's a product of love. We got to love each other. We have to love each other. We have to love each other. And when we love each other, we'll sacrifice for each other. We'll sacrifice for our husbands, sacrifice for our wives, sacrifice for our children, sacrifice for our parents. And we can raise a generation of young people who know what it means to sacrifice. And that's the Quranic model. There's one verse, I'll conclude with this, because it's my second conclusion. And if I get a third, I'm out. If throw me out 3 strikes, you're out. If throw me out the masjid. فلما بلغ معه السعي قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك فانظر ماذا ترى قال يا أبت افعل ما تؤمر ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصابرين. And when he reached that age, فلما بلغ معه السعي, when, I don't want to upset anybody, but Imam Qurtubi said it was Ishaq. But more recent Exodus said it was Ismail. But Imam Qurtubi has a very strong argument. Anyway, when his son reached the age, he can show him the ropes, take him around the block, hang out with him, start to teach him, pass down the family wisdom. Right at that age, okay, he's ready. Now you gotta kill him. He said, my son, I see in my dream, and the dream of the prophets is revelation. I have to sacrifice you. Then what did he say? What do you think about this? We have to talk to our children. Ask them what's going on. What do you think about this? We're going to do it anyway, but I just want to know how you feel about it. We have to communicate with our children. Otherwise, these gaps will develop. There's no such thing as a generation gap in Islam. There's no such thing as a generation gap in Islam. And what did he say? Father, do what you were commanded to do. Young folks, you have to support your parents. You have to make it easy for your parents to live this Islam, to be a Muslim and do the things we need to do as a Muslim. So we have a unified community, not just amongst people with gray in their beards. Among the gray beards and the salt and pepper beards and the black beards. And the gray, white, and black hijabs. So it said, Father, do what you've been ordered to do. Said, Tajiduni inshallah min as-sabirin. You'll find me amongst those who are patient. And that's a lesson. Young folks, support your parents, because just be patient. You're going to be on your own soon enough. And you know what? You wish you was back home with your parents paying all the bills. And the parents making all those wavy decisions. And the parents having to clean up your mess. Not just the mess that you create in the house, the mess that you create out in the streets or in the school. Your time is coming. Just be patient. So may Allah give us tawfiq. And Malcolm, can you find a more beautiful son? You talk about Malcolm's legacy. To his mother, to his father. May Allah give us tawfiq. May Allah give us taysir. May Allah bless us to internalize everything that was said here tonight, because it's all critically important. And keep moving.
Have y'all ever seen a Malcolm program like tonight?
No, sir.
This is like a one of a kind, man. It's one of a kind, man. I'm like, Allahu Akbar. You know what I'm saying? So when y'all making y'all donations, don't forget Lighthouse Mosque, man. Be like, they the ones that brought me Mustafa Briggs. We start out with Dr. Bilal. Then Mustafa Briggs, Aisha Prime. Then we just talking about our Ramadan stuff. It was lit up in here. And I be like, but when I see the donations coming in, I be like, somebody gonna help us out. It's always one brother who come through and you be like, Alhamdulillah, 4 more weeks of Christmas. But I'm saying for everybody else, you don't have to make a big donation, man. The barakah is in those little donations. Those little donations, that's what keep us running. It's the big donation. donation, when it comes through, it's beautiful. If you got a big donation, alhamdulillah. But usually somebody gonna make a big donation once. The rest of the year, you getting by on them little donations. I wasn't planning on doing no fundraising, but anybody want to give $5? I'm just you be like, I'm kidnapped up in here. You know what I'm saying? So we're doing real good on time. You know what I'm saying? The food is cooking. We're gonna go straight to Dr. Bilal, and he gonna hit another home run. And then we got one more speaker. And then we can do some questions and answers. So.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah. I'm going to try to be concise in my reflections this evening to make sure that there's time for our other speakers. But I want to start with just a little bit of a reflection on what Malcolm has meant to me and how Malcolm has shaped my own life and my own path and my own experience. I teach the history of Africa and the history of Islam down the road at UC Santa Barbara. I've been there now 5 years. I taught African history and Islamic history at the University of Michigan for 10 years. Before that, I was blessed to make friends with Shakir Kareem Yahya, seated just to my left during that time, and for 5 years at Northwestern University before that. But I was born as the child of a locksmith with a 6th grade education and a teenage mother who was 15 years old, pregnant with me. Never lived at the same street address for a calendar year until I was 8 years old, because we were in and out of different apartment buildings, evicted, sometimes living in a car, sometimes sleeping on relatives' couches, never having enough to eat. This was in Washington, D.C. In the late 1970s. And I tell people sometimes that the so-called dawah that we have in the Muslim community today is, comical, because just as our brother reminded us, the Christians are down in the trenches. I didn't see no Muslims when I was hungry. And I say, if y'all had come to my house with a hot meal, you could have taught me anything. And instead of memorizing every rap song that came out between 1981 and 1990, I would have memorized the Quran in that time. I would have, because if you were giving me a hot meal, I would listen to anything that you had to say. Because there were nights that I see my mother go to sleep without eating to make sure that we ate. My father suffered brutal beatings from the DC police, and he put brutal beatings on my mother. And she kidnapped us from his home to take us away to safety, to try to raise us in an environment that wasn't completely flooded with violence and drugs all the time. And when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X at the age of 15, after having been guided, as the brother reminded us, by some of the lyrics in the hip-hop music to Islam, I self-law and master, arm to the leg of arm head, Islam, Allah. I was like, what is these brothers talking about? What is this that they on? That they were always talking about knowledge of self, acquired knowledge of self. Well, what is that? So then I encountered the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I'm going to tell you this is a true story. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X cover to cover in one night. Cover to cover in one night, I didn't sleep. And then I got on my school bus, and I went to school, and I checked out an English language translation of the Quran. And I read that book cover to cover the next night. So I stayed up for a 24-hour period, and then I fell asleep, missed my school bus, didn't go to school that following day, slept through school, and I told my mom when she got home from work later that day that I'm a Muslim. Because what Malcolm had communicated in his story spoke to me at a level that nothing I had encountered to that point in my life spoke to me. And it was because of those ayahs that we heard from our Qadi at the beginning. The darknesses are plural. The darknesses are many. I had seen a lot of them. I was already drinking and using drugs by the time I was 13, 14 years old. But what I saw in the autobiography of Malcolm X, because of his sincerity, his truth, and his candor, not the fake performative piety that we see in our community, where everybody tries to pretend that they never sinned. All of the children of Adam are sinners. And the prophet, peace be upon him, told one of his companions who was making a dua, "Oh Allah, make us a people without sin, remove sin from us, take it away from us." The Prophet ﷺ said, "Stop making that dua. Don't you know that if we were ever to become a people without sin, God would wipe the earth clean of us and replace us with a people that would sin so that they would repent." Such is Allah's love for the repenters. But we won't tell the truth about where we come from. We won't tell the truth about what we have seen, nor about what our hands have done, but Malcolm told the truth. And because he told the truth, he spoke to me, because I had seen a lot of those dark places. I had been in those dark places. And if God could bring Malcolm out of those dark places, then he could bring me out of those dark places. If he could raise Malcolm to the station that he raised him, then he could raise me to that station. So I wanted what Malcolm had. And that brought me to Islam. But Malcolm also said something else that harkened back to the knowledge of self. Malcolm famously said one time, he said, "If a cat has kittens in an oven, you don't call them biscuits." Anybody remember this? And what did Malcolm mean by this? He continued, he said, "You call yourself a Negro. Show me Negro land on a map. Negro, you come from Africa. If a cat has kittens in an oven, you don't call them biscuits. If Africans have children in the new world, they're still Africans. Reconnect with your past." So I set out on a journey to try to recover knowledge of the African past. What were we before America did this to us? What were we before America did this to us? And this took me to Senegal, West Africa, where I lived for years, learned to speak the Wolof language fluently, studied at the feet of sheikhs and sheikhas in the different Sufi movements and scholarly movements in West Africa, where what had been done to me here was healed. I was returned back to my fikri state, the innate sound disposition upon which all the children of Adam are born, until the world does to us what it does. And to return to a principal theme in tonight's gathering, the world has only done this to us, as black folk in America, to keep Moses from being born. The fear of the black Messiah. The children were slain in Moses' generation, and in the generations that preceded it, in order to try to keep Moses from being born, because the Pharaoh's soothsayers had predicted that the fall of that kingdom would come from these people. And America has always known that the fall of its corrupt empire will come in our hand. They've always known this. But just as Malcolm was cut down, his blood watered the seed that God had planted in me. His blood watered the seeds in so many of us that are at this table, that are out in these streets. So we must study and honor this legacy by reconnecting with our past. One of the great West African scholars, Sheikh Ibrahim Yas, who was the author of at least 111 books in the Arabic language, may God be well pleased with him, he established a spiritual movement that at the end of his life, his branch of the Tariqa Tijaniya included at least 50 million of his own personal disciples, people that had taken tarbiyah from him. You may not even have heard the name Sheikh Ibrahim Yas. He traveled all throughout the Muslim world, all throughout the African world, a close friend of Kwame Nkrumah, a close friend of Gamal Nasser. One of the most important, influential figures in 20th century history. Many of y'all don't know his name because he's an African Muslim. Because this knowledge has been hidden from you, concealed from you, so that you would not know where you came from, that you come from greatness. Shaykh Ibrahim Yas in his tafsir of the Quran explained, he said this was actually a narration about a hadith Qudsi. He said that when God said, I created the world, I was a hidden treasure and I created the world that I might be known, that what is meant by the term known in that place is that I created the world that I might be loved. And it is the same as when God says in the Quran, I created you in different tongues and colors so that you would know one another. The implied meaning is that you would love one another. So then Shaykh Ibrahim Yas asked the question. He said, can a people that hates itself love others? And he said, of course not. Well, how can a people that doesn't know its own history, that doesn't know where it comes from, love itself? How can a bunch of people that think that they are a product of enslavement, a product of torture, rape, how can they love themselves? We reside inside a prison of our consciousness that has been constructed by our oppressors, our torturers, our captors, who have ripped our past from us, trying to cause us to forget where we came from. Why? Why do oppressors take your knowledge of the past away from you? So that when they tell you who and what you are, you have no choice but to believe them. You're a criminal. You're a thug. You're a teenage mama. You're a booty shaker. That's what you're for. And we don't know no better. But what does God tell us in the Quran, the Kareem? Because I told you it was the reading of those two books on back-to-back nights that changed my life. And the Quran continues to change my life every day. Because I refuse to break my relationship with it by abandoning it, even for a day. And God tells us in Surah Al-Hud, in the 120th ayah of his generous book, he explains to us the function of history. Why we meditate upon the past, why we reflect upon the past. And what does he say? He says, addressing the Prophet, alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, indeed, all that we relate to you in the tales of the previous prophets, with it we fortify your heart. The function of studying the past, the examples of these prophets, and of the 124,000 awliya that are alive on the face of the earth at any given time, walking in their footsteps, and know for sure that Malcolm was amongst them. If you do not know this, then you are spiritually blind, deaf, dumb, out of your mind, like the 5%ers will put it. Deaf, dumb, blind, out of their mind. They fortify our hearts. Now, what is the heart? The heart is not just the center of our emotion in the Quran. The heart is also the center of our intellection and understanding in the Quran. The Quran makes not a single mention of the mind. Not one. No nominal reference of the aql in the Quran. Aqla as a verb appears. Intellection and understanding, but the thing that does the intellection and understanding is the heart. The heart, which is mentioned 132 times, that's called the qulub. Sadr sudur 44 times. Fu'ad 16 times. The heart. They have hearts, but they don't understand with them. They have hearts, but they don't reflect with them. Huh? Not this Greek, Aristotelian, European fiction. Not an abstraction. Show me your mind real quick. Everybody, show me your mind. Do it. That's your brain. That's a physical organ that exists inside your body. A mind is a concept. It's an abstraction that the Greeks forged and put upon humanity. The Quran makes no reference to it because your heart is what sees. Your heart is what understands. Your heart is what thinks. No separation between the analytical function attributed to the head and the emotive function attributed to the heart. No, nonsense. It all takes place within your breast. So too does divine inspiration. Neither my heavens nor my earth contain me, but I'm contained in the heart of my believing servants. When the Prophet ﷺ was taken into the face-to-face encounter with God Most High, what does the Quran say of this? His gaze did not falter, neither did it transgress, and his heart did not lie about what it saw. The heart is the thing that is capable of divine witnessing, and divine witnessing, shuhada, is what is required of us, not just martyrdom. Be a witness for God. And it is a sacrifice that will be accepted from you. Yes, some of us will have to lay down our blood, and others will not be presented with that opportunity, but we may all bear witness, as Malcolm bore witness. We must all bear witness and speak the truth of what we have actually suffered, what we have actually encountered, what we have actually overcome. And that requires love, it requires trust. It requires that I expose something of my past and my struggle and my suffering so that you can commiserate with me, so that you can understand me and so that I can understand you. Because if we are not standing shoulder to shoulder with bonds of love and affection in our hearts, then the storm that is coming is going to flatten us all. It is going to flatten us all. But I come with glad tidings, and I'll close on this. I'll come with glad tidings, and I'll close on this. We know how the story ends. The Dajjal is defeated. The Dajjal is defeated. There is no suspense in the story, y'all. Pharaoh thinks that he is going to win against Moses and his people with his endless slaughter of our boys in the streets, with his endless pimping of our women, both on the streets and in the office buildings. And it's just like God said in Surah Al-Qasas, nothing changed in the devil's program. Slaying the men, keeping the women alive, and sometimes killing them too. Sandra Bland, R.I.P., and all the rest. But we know that there's a gendered nature to the violence and the oppression. The game plan ain't changed. But the thing about it is that he has already lost. We think that this struggle is difficult. We think that it's going to be hard, but it is already written. No oppressor has ever been able to hold on to their power. The fall of this corrupt regime is inevitable, and God says so in his book. Have you not wandered through the ruins of those who were mightier in power and more exalted than you? Do you see any sight of them or hear so much as a peep? God says in Surah Maryam. To close it out, mic drop on that. Do you hear so much as a peep from those that called themselves kings, that called themselves gods upon the earth? Because the people will rise. The people will end the corrupt empire. Moses will lead a people to freedom. Jesus will walk upon the waves. Abraham will be in the fire and not burn. Because for the people that have certainty of faith, God will bring an impossible victory. Believe it. It is not a myth. Yes, it requires organizing. Yes, it requires us extending bonds of love and affection to one another. But it is already written, inherited. Pay the cost. Pay the dues that are required for you to become the heir of your birthright. Free yourself from your internal oppressors, child of Adam. Then set free your brother. Set free your sister from their internal oppressors. And we will find ourselves capable of collective liberation. We take inspiration in the prophets, peace be upon them all, and we take inspiration in the Aliyah. May God be well pleased with you. Assalamu alaikum.
Based on what Dr. Bilal said. Yahya, you can answer. How's it out?
No, just got the sisters in the back.
Yahya, you can answer. This is based on what Dr. Bilal said. What do you get when you separate the intellect from the heart? What do you get when you separate the intellect from the heart? Artificial intelligence.
So, to take it back to sister, what Imam Zaid just did right there is just rock that. Like, I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. I slim it when I'm done to make sure it's broke.
So everybody's homework tonight is to Google Gil Scott Heron. Google Rakim. And if you don't, like we said before, and Imam Zaid pushed this home very clearly, the Manny Marable book is not the definitive writing about Malcom X. The definitive text is the one that he penned with Alex Zaid. Alex Zaid, whose forefather was who? Kunta Kinte. Rahmatullahi alayhi. You know what I'm saying? And so with that, we got one more speaker from B-Town. So, we're gonna do this, the Berkeley speeches. We're gonna say, okay, which one of these speeches was the best? I'm already saying it's gonna be one of these panelists from one of these cities. Actually, they was all just so great. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. I did a speech last night here called Malcom X and the Spiritual Path. And I'm just like, man, I'm glad I didn't try to say that stuff tonight. People ran me up out of here. They was like, man, come on, you gotta have that momentum. So, and it's a believer's life is gonna have that momentum that you can read their story in one night. Because it don't slow down. The autobiography of Malcom X, that even with like the movie, after he came to Islam, it kind of got boring. But the book, after he comes to Islam, every portion of the book has that same fire, that same momentum, and that's why it's so critical that I read the book when in 2020, when everybody had to stay home. I call that reparations. They was paying me to stay home. I was like, we finally even. I wasn't doing none of my work. My boss was like, I was like, I better quit. They about to send us back to work. I ain't done nothing. I'm getting them paychecks. No. But it was certain things I read in there as an adult Muslim. I hadn't read the book since I was a teenager. So it's a part in the book where he says that when he was in Mecca and he prayed and he talks about making salah, right? He said he actually learned how to pray in prison. Do y'all remember that? Says a man named Abdul Hamid came and taught him how to pray because his sister Ella sent the guy in there. Said he Muslim, he need to learn how to pray. And so when you take that part of the book and you take that, what happened with his brother Reginald, this is Malcom X and the Spiritual Path, right? His brother Reginald, who told him about the Nation of Islam, he comes talking disparagingly about Elijah Muhammad. This sends Malcom X into a spiritual crisis. So I love my brother, but now, by this point, he had his own little program. He had his own spiritual weird. And whoever doesn't have a weird, for who cured. If you don't have a spiritual program in your life, you are a monkey. So this man, who we talk about Malcolm, we do try to separate early Malcolm from late Malcolm. Oh, well, when he went to highs, that's when he's got right. But God didn't do that. God didn't do that. If you read his chapter Saved, it's the most spiritual thing written in the English language. This man said that he didn't know how to talk to God in his messenger, so he started to write the dictionary. We all say, oh, Malcolm wrote the dictionary, but why? So that he could talk to God Almighty. Isn't that the same thing they do in West Africa? They write out the Holy Quran for the purpose of talking to God. He had never been in West Africa. He did it anyway. He said the first time he did it, he said the first page, he wrote every word and every piece of punctuation, and it took him the whole day. And when he finished, his hands was aching. You imagine taking a little kid in synagogue who ain't never wrote nothing and making him write the first page of the Mosque? His hand is going to be aching. But that's spirituality. Spirituality is not burning incense. Spirituality is practices that we do in our daily life that connects us with our Creator. And so he said when he had this spiritual crisis, he said, I prayed all night. I prayed all night. And he said the next night, when I was asleep, I noticed another man in my cell, sitting in the chair. He said, and I was awake. It woke me up. He said, I saw him like I'm seeing you. He said, this man that I saw wasn't a black man. And he wasn't a white man. He was a light, brown skinned, complected, Asiatic man with black hair and a green suit. Now, when they made the movie, they made the man Elijah Muhammad. There's no way Elijah Muhammad could have been in the cell with Malcom X. The two reasons. Number one, in the book, he said, I never saw the guy before or since. In the movie that Elijah Muhammad was talking to him, he said, we didn't exchange no language. We didn't say anything to each other. We didn't say nothing, and then just like he was there, he was gone. It's big ulama that have never had a vision like that. When you're in a spiritual crisis and somebody comes to let you know it's going to be all right. And this was Malcom X and the spiritual path. Some people are like, man, I heard that yesterday. But I asked the crowd, I said, who y'all think it was? Different people said different things. Y'all should read the book and come to the conclusion who it was for yourself. But I will say, Ahmadu Baba had a very, very similar experience. Where he says, I was awake, and the messenger of Allah came to me. I was awake. I saw him in a waking state. This is the exact words that was in the book. The Out of a Mighty Miracle don't talk about that. talks about some salacious details that nobody even cares about.
With no footnotes.
With no footnotes.
With no footnotes in the book.
With no footnotes. And then he died before the book got released. And with that, we still in B-Town, y'all. Sheikh Abdul Kareem, me and him went to school together. I tell people that they think I went to school in Kareem. Yo, yeah, I studied with the Sheikh. We studied together. I just leave it open. Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa Ali. We ask Allah, along with our Prophet Sallallahu and his companions and family, that Allah send these salawat and salams that we ask upon his forefathers and brothers of all prophets and messengers, Allah's angels brought near, all of Allah's righteous servants, those who follow them in witness until the final day, and that these be upon us, with that group and among that group, by Allah's mercy, and Allah is the most merciful of the merciful. And then secondly, I flew in, we left Detroit like up since Fajr, flew in, a little bit groggy, discombobulated, wanted to get my bearings, so I asked Amir to speak later in the program, but really adab-wise, I should have spoken after Imam Zaid, and also Amir Abdul Malik. Maybe may not know that, but he was one of my first mentors. So excuse me that breach of adab, and it's good to be home, alhamdulillah. And Allah says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. And deem not, with emphasis, deem not those who were killed in the way of Allah as dead, rather they're living with their Lord, being sustained. So, as referenced, Allah took the body and the earthly life of Malik Shabazz, Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcom X, Allah. However, Allah told us that the likes of him still lives. And you, and to be very personal, Bay Area Muslims, East Bay Muslims, Oakland Muslims, his legacy lives in us. Like Dr. Ware, I did not know the name Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam until I was 15. As a young man in the 80s, in this environment, that only came to school for my Black Studies classes. And after that, I would go do the things I did to make money and have fun, right? Totally alienated from the environment I was in and living a godless life and a Muhammad-less life. So he gave the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam to so very many of us. And that, according to our theologians, is the definition of bulugh al-da'wah. What is the da'wah reaching? What is bulugh al-da'wah in Faisal al-Tafriqa? Imam al-Ghazali says it's the name, description, and signs of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu reaching a person. Literally in my life, he gave me the name of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. So in deference, as the sister said, there's scholars, whatever, all of our scholarship is on his shoulders. Ad-dal ala khair kafa'ilihi. The one who leads to a good is like the one who did it. And just to be very, I saw a video, and I'll give a background of why I think it's important. This video that was circulated, people argued about it, people did it, of the young man, Taj, calling the Imam. And when I saw that, I said, alhamdulillah, that kid is Muslim, calling the Imam. I know his family, right? They're my in-laws. Our family here in Berkeley, Oakland Muslims, 4 generations deep in Islam. At least 2 of the girls, half of the Quran, a number of them teaching various disciplines. All of that is in the fadl of Malcom, right? I wouldn't know Muhammad al-Sallallahu Masjid al-Islam, how many people took Shahada there? How many of us were inspired by Amir Abdul Malik and Imam Musa, Allah yarhamu? Those of us that some of us went and studied, where did I learn about study, I learned about study when this man told me, and I was in danger of getting swept up by a very destructive ideology that's occurring in the Muslim land. He said, you should read the books of Sayyid Sufis, and I read Ihya al-Din. So, Jazakallahu anna khayran. So the point is, his legacy lives. Like, his enemy, and I hope that this is our enemy. I really hope that it's still our enemy, and that we haven't gotten into bed with it. The system. Right? He was an enemy of this evil. And it doesn't have a complexion. And it's deeper than a country. As Imam Zaid said, he was an icon. He was an icon, and he was fighting an icon. A Fir'aunic system that's an icon of evil, of enslavement, of massacre, of massacring our men. And look at the human being that Allah raised up in him. That would have crushed anyone else. Many of our brothers, and we might talk about some of our uncles and what have you, our people, we have psychological martyrs, economic martyrs, social martyrs, martyrs that are incarcerated, and martyrs that spill their blood. This system, it chews us up. And he resisted that and retained his honor and was raised to one of the highest of honors, as Shahada Allah Yarhamu. That's an amazing individual, and many of us, like I can say in my household, Dr. Ware mentioned it, you hear many, Dr. Omar Abdullah Farouk, I was traveling somewhere in a program in the last couple of weeks, an uncle mentioned it. Many of us, our Islam and Allah, His Messenger, the Quran, generations of Muslim children, Salam, coming out to meet my grandbaby, to introduce a Muslim granddaughter to my father. All of that is in the scales of Malcom. So we say, Jazallahu anna. We ask Allah to reward him on our behalf and on behalf of Islam. And he's part of a karama that Allah created in this hemisphere. This African diaspora Muslim population, the largest group of those that we regard legally as having embraced Islam, and I say that because some of them also might be Muslim, right? Many Africans that are in the diaspora, if we were able to find it, prior to Baloo, definitely you can make an argument they're Muslim. But like the largest convert group in the Western Hemisphere, he's one of the huge figures of that. And so Allah knows best, he's living. Allah knows best in his barzakh from this majlis right here. From any dhikr that your needy brother Abdul Kareem, or as y'all know me from Oakland, as AK says, any Quran I recite, any hadith I narrate, when Allah allowed me to travel and translate with ulama, any translation I did, he's being rewarded for all of that. And many more, and those much greater than I. And then, we have an accountability though. And if I can be real, I listen, to prepare for this, I listened to a message to the grassroots. And Amir, the sister reading his letter, mentioned that he was resisting this racist order. Like, frankly speaking, I grew up here in the East Bay. I grew up in the home of an activist. I was a part of an inner city masjid, went and studied, came back on what Imam Musa used to call the Muslim show, Allah yarhamu. This American Muslim speaking circuit. And frankly, I never encountered racism in my upbringing, in my time in the hood, in my time in the East. So actually, in the East, I did encounter some of it. I'll tell you, that's another story. Like I encounter in the Muslim show. And another thing, and this is, if I can just be real, a lot of now, I see Omar Frontless back there. Where's the compelling black American Muslim leadership that doesn't seem scared in the United States right now? And I'm saying that to myself. I'm saying that to these other men on this panel with me. He gave us a leg. Listen. Grandfather killed. Him martyred. Grandson killed. People widowed. Driven out of their homes. We got to stand with that kind of legacy, and we're just going to get comfortable. We're going to be afraid to take uncompromising wara. Don't even forget it, black. An uncompromising Quranic sunnah. If we say we're traditional Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah position, because we're afraid of what? Suburban money leaving us. We're afraid of white folks being upset about us. And it's not about color. But there's a Eurocentric order that is violent, that is evil, that is imperialistic, that still kills our brothers in the streets, still hits us over the head and locks us up. We've buried numerous brothers in Detroit since I've been there. We buried brothers in Oakland. In Detroit, killed by police. Throw a flash grenade into the house, a no-knock warrant, run in the house and kill him. We have a brother who's made Tawbah, fasting Ramadan for the perhaps first time after Tawbah, spent the first part of Ramadan doing what? In jail, breaking his fast. Because he's black. You know what he said to me? He said, oh, that happened because I didn't do my dhikr this morning. This system is doing that still. Where's our resistance to it? The Muslim show, it's turned martyrdom into a cult. Listen to it. They'll say the call of martyrdom. If martyrdom is a cult, may Allah make me from that cult. Because Muhammad was from that cult. He died a martyr from the poison of Khaybar. Because many of the Khulafa, Umar was from that cult. Because Hussein bin Ali was from that. Because Malcom, our Imam and our martyr, was from that. So, again, are we upholding the legacy? It's great to have programs. Alhamdulillah, we got masjids. I remember mashallah, we're having to get $6,000 that first fundraiser. Right, but have we gotten comfy? And are we laying in bed with that very system that Malcolm died in resistance of? And again, it's not about a country. It's not about an ethnicity. And ultimately, the enemy is the shaitan and his awliya. However, the shaitan and the awliya of the shaitan will have various manifestations, and a system like this is one of those manifestations. And then lastly, just to end, and this specifically to the young people, I alhamdulillah, one grandchild here, I think I have some kids here, I have my brothers here, so a lot of you youngsters, I see Yusuf, I see Omar, Amir, Abdul, Malik, they're my nephews and my children and now grandchildren. Where's the succession, y'all? Like, are we going to drop the baton, or are we going to carry the mantle? And again, as Amir Abdul Malik said, if we're going to carry that, we should get ready for sacrifice. And as an African American man, some service has been placed on my shoulders, we all know people are going to ask us to sell out. I've been in some of those behind-the-scenes conversations, and that's why I listen to Message to the Grassroots. Because I was sitting here like, man, maybe the Big Six is still here, getting kicked down. Lord. And honestly, it made me sick. It made me sick. And it was like an existential crisis. I had to go back to the hood. Maybe that's not everybody's path, but where's the succession? Right? And like maybe Allah from Detroit, he said, if you're scared, just say you're scared. Right? Do a Fatiha for Malcolm, alhamdulillah, but I'm scared to take that out. But some of us, especially these young people, take the mantle, and as Dr. Bilal said, this civilization is in collapse. This sucker is gone. It's done. It's done in writing, right? Allah, what Allah has prescribed, we know these things will happen, but look what's happening. You can't drive past a freeway overpass in one of the wealthiest localities in the world, except that it's full of homeless people under there. I was driving my wife from the Midwest. She's not out here from the West Coast. These people were at a fair singing. I said, oh, baby, it's Pride Month. It's them people, but maybe it's not. She said, no, I saw a man in a dress. That's a collapsed civilization. When the university tells you someone's born Bobby, oh, no, that's not Bobby. That's Barbara. Like, they're inverting truth. First of all, like, moral truths were relative. Now, objective, empirical facts they can deny it. That's someone that's totally divorced from truth. So if we don't take the mantle, where in the world do we think we're going to go? This sucker is going to fall apart. And some people, there will be sadiqeen that will always be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with His messenger, and nothing will harm them. And with that we'll close. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, لا يزال طائفة من أمتي ظاهرين على الحق لا يضرهم من ناوأهم حتى يأتي أمر الله. There will always be a group giving victory or well aware of the truth, not harmed by those to oppose them until the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us to be from them. And may Allah protect us and keep us on the likes of what Malcom was on. That we return from any falsehood we are on to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. And that we hold on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His word, the messenger. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us to live on that, die on that, and be resurrected on that. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Amir! I told y'all I studied with the Shaykh. He studied together. Alhamdulillah. So with that, I believe it's time for Margaret. Yeah. So what we're gonna do? If y'all got questions for the speakers, it's gonna have to be one-on-one because we're not doing no questions and answers past Maghrib because the Muslim brother fighting tonight, and we got to take care of it. We got to support our Muslim athletes. We got to support them, y'all. That's part of the whole movement. All the brothers gonna be going. This is gonna be sister class. You know what I'm saying? And the brother from Oakland too. What's the brother's name? I can't hear you. Devin Haney. He about to beat this dude, inshallah. And then he gonna say la ilaha illallah. I'm like, this is like Muhammad Ali all over again. Yes. Yes, man, Zaid. Okay. Oh no. So you guys know it's a brother who teaches you how to hear named Amir Jones. He fought on that ticket. He Muslim brother. He won by a knockout. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. You can't say that around the sheikhs. They gonna be like, can't hit people in the face. Oh man. Lakers lost again, man. The job, man. So we're gonna have the adhan and then we're gonna pray, inshallah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله